Hello and welcome back to her Hoop Stats Unplugged. As always, you're here with Megan Gauer, and we are jumping back in from last week's episode, continuing our season preview of the 2022-2023 NCAA season. Calvin is here with me again to jump into it, going over everything that we didn't quite get to covering last week. So without further ado, here I am with Calvin Wetzel. All right, now the fun part where we make predictions for March that are probably wrong, but actually, I don't know. I'm looking at this list and I'm like, maybe not that wrong because, I just feel like there's some pretty clear favorites, at least in this section, that I'll be surprised, barring any crazy injuries or anything, it changes that much. But Final Four picks, talking about who is going to Dallas come March, because we're in Dallas this year. I had to double check that in my head, but yeah, Dallas 2023. I feel like the first one on my list is probably also on your list and sharpied all the way to the national championship, South Carolina.
Yep, yeah, South Carolina's in Sharpie, definitely. In terms of who's going to be in Dallas, me first off. So
yes,
any listener, you going to be there? Yep, good. All right, come say hi to us. Anyone else is going to be there? Also, I think South Carolina will be there with us. That's about as Sharpie as it gets. And my next one, who I think would be my number 2, is Stanford. We've talked about them. Again, we could talk about Haley Jones and Cameron Brink and all the reasons why they're going to be there. But this feels a little bit like the All-Americans, where it's almost like it's boring. You just have this top tier that we kind of know. We know who they are, and they're awesome. And it's not disrespect, like we said. It's so much respect that just what do we need to analyze? They're just better than everyone. That's just how it goes.
Exactly. Yeah, and we do get those two teams against each other. I think it's early December, so that'll be a fun one. So we get it before the Final Four.
Yeah, we got it twice last year, so hopefully we get it twice this year too. Once in the regular season and maybe in the tournament. That regular season matchup was fantastic last year. Not that the Final Four one wasn't, but I think the regular season one was actually better. So hopefully we get another good one again this year in the regular season.
For sure. All right, and then I think we both have the same team as at 3 as well, but maybe not as expected. I don't know. I feel like it is expected, but in some ways it's not with UConn. I pretty firmly feel that UConn's going to be a Final Four team, but I don't know that that's the consensus going into the season.
Yeah, well, it's the consensus on this show because I have them. You're probably right. There are going to be people who don't think so, and that's fine. To me, UConn's made the Final Four for the last 173 years, and until they miss a Final Four, I will pick them in my Final Four. Paige Beckers or no Paige Beckers, it's just a team. It's just a program that is just there. It doesn't matter who's on the court. Look at what they went through last year with injuries, and they just have so much talent and so many pieces and so much of a history and tradition that they can withstand all of the different moving pieces with injuries and transfers and whatever else happens that they just be there at the end of the year. So I mean, last year they got outside the top 10 at one point, I think, right? And they, at the end of the year, I think they were 11th for at least 1 week in the AP poll. And at the time, that didn't even look incorrect based on they didn't have Paige Beckers. Did they lose to Georgia Tech? Am I remember that correctly?
Yeah, that might have been after the Georgia Tech loss, or I think it was actually not till after the Louisville loss that they fell out of the top 10. But they were without Paige Beckers. They were without Ely Fudd. I think Nika Mule might have been out at that point. They had quite the laundry list of injuries going.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't think anyone actually thought that 11th was incorrect for who they were putting on the floor at that point. I think they were putting the 11th best team on the floor at that point, but it's a team that whatever they go through in the middle of the season, they're going to be there at the end of the year. They were in the national championship last year. They're going to be in the Final Four this year. I actually root against UConn, as you know, because in general sports, I root against teams that always win. So I would love to be wrong on this one, but I'm not picking against them until they prove me wrong.
Yeah, I think they're a team that, honestly, I'll be surprised if they're a top 5 team in the rankings coming into the season. I think that the loss of Paige Beckers will, in addition to the fact that they did lose Kristen Williams, Olivia Nelson-Ododa, and Avina Westbrook from last year's team too, I think that'll probably knock them out of the top 5 in the poll. How long that lasts, I think we'll see. I think we'll know real fast, though, because, I mean, the next team I'm going to say in UConn play in the first week of the season. So I think we're going to get a very quick idea of where this team's at.
All right, well, who's that? You gotta give us your number
Texas.
4 then. I was hoping we would disagree on one, Megan.
I know we're back to our agreeing ways. We did disagree earlier, at least.
We did. We went head to head. We disagreed like 4 times. That was good.
Yeah.
Iowa, Tennessee, Maryland. We had a lot, so I guess I can't complain. All right, we can agree on the Final Four.
I did have Tennessee in parentheses next to Texas as is this the year that Tennessee goes back to the Final Four, but I couldn't commit to it. I think Texas is the bigger team, better team.
Megan's going to pencil in orange team into the 4th spot.
Yeah, I think the final team will be orange. I think that's a good take.
I like it.
You know, Virginia Tech wins the ACC. Maybe they're in that conversation. Also, orange team. I like my odds. If I could place a bet on a team with an orange being in the Final Four, I would put some money on that.
Hey, sportsbook, someone give us a special bet for that. That would be fun. Texas, I mean, we talked about Rory Harmon already. They did lose a couple pieces with Aaliyah Matharu transferring, but they brought in Shaylee Gonzalez, massive get from BYU, and Sonia Morris, massive get from DePaul. For a team that, by the way, in the first 2 years of Vic Schaefer's tenure, this is year 3, they were already knocking on the door of the Final Four. They made the Elite 8 in each of his first 2 years. 3rd time's the charm, I think, right? So I think this is the year they get over the hump with all that they have. And I think Rory Harmon gets them there. So I'm with you, Texas, number 4.
Yeah. I think Rory Harmon making a big jump this year and carrying this team to the Final Four is a very plausible way that the season plays out for Texas. And you've got a coach that has the experience getting there. So I think they're really set up for success this year. I guess we talked that South Carolina was in our Sharpie all the way to the national championship, but who do you think is going to play South Carolina in that national championship game?
I'm going to go with Stanford. I'm going to, with Paige Beckers, I would have picked UConn. Same boring matchup 2 years in a row, but kind of mixed it up a little bit. I think Stanford is going to get there this year, and I think with all the pieces that they had, like we said, we don't have to break it down that much. These are just the 2 best teams, I think. I don't know if you think UConn is one of the 2 best teams, but to me, the gap is from 2 to 3 right now in terms of the tiers. There's also a gap from 1 to 2. I think South Carolina is still like in a tier of their own again, but I think there's another gap from 2 to 3. And I wouldn't have said that with Paige Beckers on the court, but without her, I think there's 2 gaps right there.
Yeah, for me, I think the gap is really the 1 to 2. I think had UConn had Paige Beckers, I think we would have had like a 1A, 1B in South Carolina to UConn. I think those would have been very clearly like kind of the top tier by themselves. And then a gap, I think without Paige Beckers, for me, it's South Carolina gets its own little tier because I don't know who else you would put with them. Yeah, and that is for me.
Nobody.
Yeah, there's no one to put there. You can't put anyone with them. So they get their own tier. And then for me, I don't know. Like, I think UConn, Stanford, Texas is kind of like the next group for me. And maybe I'm higher on UConn, but I do think they have the talent. Stanford, I think, has a lot of question marks. Like, they have Haley Jones and Cameron Brink, and that's going to take them a lot. But they lost the whole twins. They lost Anna Wilson. They never really figured out that point guard position last year, and there's nothing on this team that makes me think it's going to be easy for them to figure it out this year either. So I think there's still a fair amount of question marks there and how they're going to change up their lineup and how they're going to figure out that point guard position. And then Texas, I think, is making a step up. So there's a little bit of a question mark of like, are they really at that next level? I think they very well can be. But so for me, it's kind of South Carolina, those 3. I almost want to put Tennessee in that group, but I'm too hesitant on where they are. I'm like, I don't know, but I think I guess they're kind of part of that group for now because I do think they could be very good. I think those are like the 4 teams, if you include Tennessee, so Texas, Tennessee, UConn, and Stanford, that have the talent on their roster right now to be like in part of that second top tier.
So you got tier A with South Carolina, tier B with 4 teams.
Yep. And then I got after that.
I got tier A with South Carolina, tier B with Stanford, and I got tier C with all those other teams. Tennessee's not my tier C, by the way, either. They're D or E.
There we go. Some disagreement for this section.
UConn and Texas, definitely tier C for me.
Okay, that's fair. But we do get those on. We're going to talk about it when we get to. It's not technically week 1; it's day 1 of week 2. But I put them in my games to watch for week 1 because it's by far the best first week in a day early season matchup.
Yeah, no, that counts. I think 8-day week. Why not?
Yeah, I felt like it would be wrong to talk about top games for the first week and not discuss that game. So.
Yeah, no, I like it. Well, on that note, should we get into those? You want to just jump into that one?
Yeah, let's just skip to that. So, games to watch the first week. Maybe we can work backwards on my calendar and just start with this UConn-Texas game because it is, I think, when I look at my list, it is the highlight of week 1. I mean, it's probably, we don't have AP poll ratings yet. Definitely, I would say a top 10 matchup, maybe a top 5 matchup, depending how things fall. I think for Texas, you get to see Rory Harbin first time against a tough opponent as a sophomore, see where she's at. For UConn, I think for the people that are questioning where this team can be without Paige Beckers, this is quite the early measuring stick to figure out where this team is.
Yeah, no, it's going to be appointment viewing for sure. I mean, it's not just the biggest matchup of the week 1, first 8 days in quotes. It's one of the best matchups. I mean, you could put South Carolina Stanford up there. It was one of the top 2 or 3 matchups of the whole regular season, especially the whole non-conference season.
I fully agree with that. Yeah, it is definitely one of the best games of the year, and at least non-conference games of the year for sure. So a game that everyone should be circling. I plan to be there in person. It is at UConn, so that's exciting. But yeah, it should be a good one.
All right, so we going backwards chronological then?
Yeah, might as well.
All right, well, I'm going to start with November 12th then, Saturday. And actually, I got a group of games here. One of them is November 11th. I got 3 games where who I expect to be ranked. 2 of them are for sure going to be ranked. One of them probably power conference team are all going on the road to quality mid-majors, which I love. I think one of these mid-majors is going to get a win. I don't know which one. You got Iowa at Drake. You got Louisville at Belmont, and you got Villanova at Princeton. Those are all the first 2 are the Saturday. Nova Princeton's Friday. If Nova's ranked, then you're talking about 3 ranked power conference teams there. The Big East is a power conference to me. It's called the Power 5 or whatever, but in basketball it's the Power 6. So Villanova, Louisville, Iowa are going to be ranked. Are going to be on the road. I think Princeton's going to have the best chance to win of those 3. But I love Belmont. I'm going to talk about them in a bit. So to me, that group, it's all kind of the same type of game. I can't wait to watch. I love it. I love when good mid-majors get their shot to go up against the ranked power team anyway. And when they get to do it in their own building, that's exciting. Those places are going to be lit. So let's go. I'm going to be watching all those.
Yeah, those are on my list as well. Well, 2 of them at least are on my list. I think that Nova Princeton game in particular is going to be a really good one. I expect that to be a close game. It should be a fun matchup. And staying on the theme of, now I'm going out of order, but whatever, on the theme of power conference teams at mid-majors, we've got Creighton on opening day at South Dakota State, and then Creighton at South Dakota later in the week as well. So both of those games, Big East team against 2 of the South Dakota teams, should be fascinating matchups as well.
Definitely. South Dakota State is another one I'm going to talk about in a little bit here, but those are the first 2 chronologically. Those are the first 2 on my list as well. Or actually, I don't remember what day Creighton plays South Dakota. Creighton South Dakota State was the first one on my list chronologically.
Yeah, that's opening day.
But yeah, so I got that. I got both of those circled. Those South Dakota schools are always legit. We talk about Creighton's probably going to be ranked. They bring back a lot from what people didn't realize until the end of the year was a fantastic team last year. So big time matchups.
Yeah, I think this is unrelated to the schedule, but Creighton antidote. I think my favorite thing about Creighton is they were so underrated last year, and it's a team that's offense is just so impossible almost to guard. I remember being at the game where they played UConn at home, so on UConn's campus, and watching them score so much, and I was like, wow, it's like UConn's, I hadn't watched as much Creighton at this point. I'm like, their defense just like doesn't look good today. What's going on? And then I'm sitting in the press conference afterwards and Gino being like, I was really happy with our defense. And I'm like, well, obviously I'm not going to argue with what Gino Ariema says about the team's defense, especially if he's giving it compliments, because that's few and far between. But then started watching a lot more Creighton. It is just like, it wasn't really anything UConn was doing wrong. It is just that offensive system is so hard to guard.
Yeah, the way they move the ball and shoot threes, I mean, it's also just so fun to watch. So tune into those.
Definitely. Another kind of mid-major game I have on my list as well. Tennessee is playing UMass. We're going to talk about them probably a little bit as well. So that one could be interesting. I think Tennessee is going to win it, but that UMass is going to be a strong team this year. And I think that's a fun kind of early season matchup. Yeah,
UMass was a phenomenal team last year, made the tournament. Jacob Mox and I have had that one circled for a while as a potential game to we're gonna hopefully be doing those the playback thing, whatever you call that thing, for some mid-major games this year. We've had that one circled for a while, so we'll see if that one works out. But I love that one too. And then I'm gonna give you another. I'm gonna give you two more here. Segue from as long as we're talking about power conference versus mid-major, and then as long as we're talking about Tennessee, two different ones. First off, Missouri versus Missouri State, another power conference versus mid-major. It's always a fun rivalry, play every year. In-state rivalry, in-state rivals. That's another one on day one, and it's the coaching debut at Missouri State for Beth Cunningham, who was an assistant for a long time under Muffet McGraw, Notre Dame. So I think that one's going to be a really good. Obviously, two good teams. And then with Tennessee, sticking with Tennessee versus Ohio State. A couple days later, November 8th, Tuesday. I believe this is going to be our first top 25 power conference matchup. Assuming Ohio State is ranked. I know you said they might not be, so we'll see. But and this is also going to be a good matchup to see who's right, Megan, because I'm a lot higher on Ohio State than you are. You're a lot higher on Tennessee than I am. I think Ohio State's going to win this game.
Okay.
I'm assuming you don't, but
no.
we'll get to find out pretty early who's right. So that's one I have circled as well.
That one should be interesting. And then I think the other obvious one on this list of early season is South Carolina at Maryland is on November 11th. So like I said, I'm not that high on Maryland. So I honestly don't know that this game is going to be all that interesting. But it is probably, well, definitely a top 25 matchup. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being a top 10 matchup, even though I don't necessarily think it should be. So that one is obviously one to circle too. But yeah, I guess we'll get a gauge of where Maryland's at to start. Does South Carolina beat them by 10 or does South Carolina beat them by 40?
It'll be a great litmus test. Yeah, you're right. It probably won't be a super interesting game because, I mean, even if Maryland is as good as I think they are, they'll still lose by double digits because that's what South Carolina does to people. But it's definitely a good litmus test, like you said, 10 or 40. And then there's one more that I've written down that is not exactly the same as any of these other games. Just in terms of the game itself is not particularly interesting. Kansas State, Wisconsin, nothing special. Sorry, Wisconsin. Kansas State without Aoka Lee is a little bit different team. Maybe not as exciting, but it's interesting to me because it takes place on a baseball field, and that is pretty cool. It's part of a doubleheader that Wisconsin's having at the Brewers Stadium. The men's team plays later. I'm mildly considering going. We'll see if I make it or not. But every now and then we see it more on the men's side. I know the men's side has had some games on like an aircraft carrier, some weird stuff. So it's cool to see them just like mess around. I don't know. We'll see if the backdrops might be weird. We could see a really low scoring game and it might actually be a terrible game to watch. That'd be super boring because with the shooting backdrops of playing on a baseball field, we might see a lot of bricks. So not necessarily recommending to tune in, but it's just like, it's intriguing to me because I've never actually seen this before. I've never seen a college basketball game take place on a baseball field. So I'm interested. I'll probably bet the under on that one as a better. Just something I had written down though.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I did not know that. So that is pretty cool and different. And glad to see them doing a doubleheader with like the women's team too. That's always fun.
Yeah, definitely. And the men's team is going to be a good game with Wisconsin and Stanford. So hopefully a lot of fans will come out for both of those. Get a good crowd. I mean, place holds like 40,000, so it's a lot bigger than in baseball. I don't think they're going to fill that up, but and then I did have South Carolina, Maryland written down too. Those are my last two that I written down.
Yeah, I think that one has to go on the list, regardless of the fact that it
Yes.
may actually not be that interesting as a game. You can't leave off the one that has the like potential top 10 matchup.
No, absolutely.
Alrighty, yeah. So over under how many screens are you gonna need? The first week of national season is the real question.
Yeah, every single one in my living
I
room, which
know.
is 5, I think. Although I could get laptops going, so who knows?
Yeah.
It's the second best week. No, that's not true. It's the third best week of the whole year. First is March Madness for me. Second
Yeah.
is Thanksgiving week with all the tournaments. And third, which is like 2 weeks after that, so it's perfect. And third is opening week this week. One of my favorite weeks of the whole year.
You don't put Champ Week in there somewhere?
I kind of lump that in with first week of March. I guess that's
Fair.
You're right. That's a different week. I consider like Champ Week and then like the first week of March Madness, since they're just like all back to back. That's like one. It's not 1 week, but it's like one segment of time. So like that. Yeah, you're right though. Champ Week is definitely up there. That 2-week period, 3 weeks really.
I'm a big Champ Week person. I might like Champ Week more than the first week of March Madness. I don't know. Something about like watching the teams that are like have no chance of making the tournament, trying to make a run, and some of them actually making the tournament. It's very fun to me.
Yes. No, it is so cool. I'm with you. It's at least as good as the first and second round. And also you just have, as crazy as the first and second round is, when you have, 32 games or whatever, and you got like 4 games going at once, and it's just so hard to keep track of it all, which is fun. Champ Week is that much more. I mean, you can have 12 relevant games, like nationally relevant games going on at the same time. Like you said, you can have an 8 seed in the tournament that's like 11 and 23 go on a run and, knock out someone, burst someone's tournament bubble, maybe put some pressure to get into the tournament themselves. You have all sorts of buzzer beaters. You have the emotion of seniors playing their final game, the emotion of those late game finishes for the team that wins. It's just, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in sports.
Yeah. Also, because I'm a nerd and like to try to figure out how like every game is impacting how the bracket's gonna look like. But
yes,
yeah.
as the Hoop Stats resident bracketologist
Yes.
that you are, I would expect nothing less from you.
Yeah. So always a fun one. So of course we also have to talk about mid majors, because I mean we've worked some mid major takes, I think, in here throughout anyway, especially talking about the schedule in the first week, but gotta go a little deeper on that and not just talk about the Power 5 or Power 6 as we like to call it. So Calvin, start us off. Who are you keeping an eye on in the mid major scene this year?
Yeah, my first one that I love, and you know me, I have a million, but I'm going to keep it to 2, so we're not here all night. Belmont, first year in the Missouri Valley. Destiny Wells and Tootie Jones coming back. An incredible backcourt. Tootie Jones was Defensive Player of the Year last year. I'm for the Belmont preview for the season preview for the Valley website. I talked to Coach Brooks. He told me he thinks they're going to set a school record for points scored and points allowed. That's how much he's worried about his defense. Even getting the Defensive Player of the Year back, which to me, I mean, I just tells me the standards that he has. I don't know if I'm probably less worried than he is, but they brought in Sydney Harvey as well, big time addition from South Florida. You remember that Baja Mar Pink Flamingo Championship last year? She put 22 on Oregon. They were ranked number 9 at the time. She hit that game winner over Stanford. So she's a 5th-year grad transfer, brings a ton of experience, big shot making ability to this Belmont team that already had so much of it. They have an absolutely ridiculous schedule. They play Iowa, they play Louisville, they play Villanova. They're probably going to play Baylor in their early season tournament if they both win the first round game, which they should. It's a gauntlet. They go up and down. And now they're in the Missouri Valley, so not quite the same gauntlet as Iowa and Louisville, but still lots of tests even after January for this team. The way they play, shooting so many threes, they're in Nashville, Tennessee. They call themselves Splashville. I love that. So to me, this is going to be one of the top teams to watch. I don't think they're going to be ranked preseason. If I were a voter, I would rank them preseason. I think they might get a few votes at least, maybe be in the 30s. The way the Valley schedule is set up this year is that there's one team you play everyone at home except for one team and everyone on the road except for one team. Belmont is the one team that doesn't come to Illinois State this year where I live. So, it's good for Illinois State. They only have to play Belmont once because it's a tough game. As a neutral fan, kind of bummed because I was hoping to get to see Belmont here, but I'm thinking about actually traveling to Splashville to watch that game because I got to see Belmont. They're so fun to watch. So they're right at the top of my list.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just the NBC as a whole, too, a conference that's consistently year in, year out really good. Honestly, like almost starting to get up there more with the power conferences. You've adding Belmont, it should definitely be a multi-bid league this year. I would think I would be shocked if they're not a multi-bid league come March. So just a league as a whole to keep an eye on as well. They're always putting out a few quality teams.
Yeah, and they were a multi-bid league last year too, although that was because Illinois State took one of them. But,
yes.
I mean, they're only better. They only got better with the addition of Belmont and Murray State and some of these other teams bringing in some good transfers too. So I agree, multi-bid league, book it.
Yeah, definitely.
I had another one too. I think we both had on our list. Is South Dakota State. To me, this is a second weekend team. This is a Sweet 16 team. I am extremely high on them. I actually save the best for last because I actually think South Dakota State's better than Belmont. South Dakota State's at the top of my list if I were ranking mid-major teams. No shade to Belmont. I could have put them in the underrated team too, but I saved them for here. They're a strong program. Obviously, they have success every year. They had a sort of a quote-unquote down year last year, as in they didn't make the tournament, which for them is a big down year. The only reason, though, is because they missed Maya Sullen to injury early in the year, their best player. They went 2-5 without her. She came back, went 26-4 with her, went on a giant run to win the WNIT, took apart Seton Hall in the championship, a good Seton Hall team who I know you liked a lot. That's how good they were last year. They got almost everyone back from that team, 6 of their top 7, including her. And they add Drew Gilton, another one of those transfers from Utah that I mentioned when we talked about the Pac-12. Going to be a big rotational piece for them. South Dakota native who's coming home. So I think it could be ranked versus ranked when we see them play Creighton. There's a chance. I think it should be. I hope it is. And we'll get to see them tested right away. They were in the top 15 of the Hoop Stats ratings last year, by the way, even though they didn't make the tournament. So to me, South Dakota State has Sweet 16 written all over them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Maya Sullen, MVP of the WNIT when they won it. Just a team that was really strong last year and just brings back most of that as well. And then, like you said, the addition from Utah, they're just a team that I agree probably should be ranked coming in. I kind of doubt that they will be just because of the nature of the AP poll. But regardless, a team that is probably going to surprise some people in their early season schedule.
Yeah, you're right. Mid-majors don't get enough love in that. I'll say this, though. Even as much as maybe mid-majors get a little bit underrated in the AP poll, I still think if South Dakota State's not ranked preseason, if they beat Creighton in that first game, I think they will be. I think that'll be enough. Monday after that, I think they'll be sneaking in top 25.
Yeah, I agree. Though I think Creighton's also going to be really good. So I just in general just think that's going to be a great game. I don't really know who's going to win it. I think either team could come out on top in there, but it's going to be a really, really good game. Hopefully Definitely. It's on some form of national television.
Yeah, well, we'll see. With teams like that level, they don't get that respect. Yeah, it should be.
I just hope it's not on Flow Sports.
No, I think it should be on ESPN Plus if it's not on national television.
The Big East deal is with Flow Sports.
That's right. Who's home in that game? I didn't look who's home. It depends. Who's home.
South Dakota State is home.
All right,
Creighton's
good.
On the road, so
good. It should be ESPN Plus. Then
Yeah.
ESPN Plus has that contract with Midco, who does all the South Dakota schools. So as long as they're home, I think we should be good. You're right. I forgot. Big East team is home. We'll probably have to get Flow Sports, but I get Flow Sports. I think you do too, right? We both pay once a year in November for Flow Sports. So.
I might have to pay for it for the full year to start watching more Big East basketball. Unfortunately, I'm not thrilled about it because, well, it's a topic for when we get to Thanksgiving and all the reasons why I hate Flow Sports.
They got some room to grow. I would say,
yes.
But it's a necessary evil in November, at least, maybe all year if you want to watch the Big East.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Also on my list, I've got a team that we talked about a little bit in our first week lineup because they're playing Tennessee, but UMass also brings back their full starting lineup from a really, really solid team last year. I think they banged up a little bit at the end of the A-10 season, just a fair amount of solid teams in the A10 last year. That Dayton was really good, made it to the NCAA tournament, so added a few too many losses to their resume, but still a really solid team from last year, and a team I think is going to be even better this season.
Yeah, and that way A10, you mentioned Dayton. A10 was another multi-bid mid-major league, probably a more legit multi-bid mid-major league than the Valley was last year. Sam Breen, coming back for UMass, is I'm pretty sure going to be on the Her Hoop Stats, Becky Hammond mid-major top 25 watch list coming in the season. So yeah, another big-time program. I love them.
Yeah, fun little power conference nugget too. They add P.F. Gabriel, who was at UConn. Never really played much at UConn, but have a feeling she'll get quite a few more minutes at UMass than she did in Connecticut. So that could be a fun addition as well.
Yeah, she should have a big impact.
Yeah. And then lastly on my list, I have Princeton. I mean, a team that's always at the top, around the top of the Ivy, has been really solid this past few years. They do lose Abby Myers, which is a big blow, but they've got a really solid squad still, and I think they're going to be really tested early on. They're playing both Texas and UConn before the first half of December is over. They've also got Buffalo, Villanova, and Seton Hall on that non-conference schedule. So a team that's going to be making their way through some of the Power Conference and other top schools.
Yeah, hashtag get stops. Princeton's defense. Their social media loves it. I love it. Princeton's a team, like if you enjoy good quality defense, because there's a difference when neutral fans watch basketball games and it's just like a terrible, brick fest, sloppy offense, no fun to watch, versus like a low scoring game that maybe casual fans wouldn't like to watch, but because it's really good defense, and that's the type of game Princeton plays. They play what I consider to be aesthetically pleasing, low scoring games. So, and I think they'll be doing that again. I think Caitlin Shen is a name that could break out a lot. I love that. I love that pick.
Yeah, and if you're missing Jen Hatfield from our preview episode, be on the lookout for when we get closer to that UConn Princeton game, because you might see her face on here to talk some more about that one.
Go Tigers. Sorry, Megan.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It's also a fun story. Carla Berube, their head coach, used to play at UConn, so it'll be a fun little homecoming as well. Well, thanks, Calvin, for joining me today and going on this very long preview of the season.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Megan. This is one of my favorite parts every year.
Yes, and we're so close to the season, so it's starting to get exciting. Well, that's all for today's episode. Thanks again for listening. Make sure wherever you're listening to us, make sure to rate, like, and subscribe to the podcast, whether that be on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Also, make sure you're subscribing to the stats site over at herhoopstats.com. It's just $20 a year to subscribe, and we have all of your needs covered for both NCAA and WNBA stats. And subscribe to our free newsletter as well on Substack to get all of our best content directly to your inbox. Also, be sure you are following us on social media at Her Hoop Stats on all platforms. Thanks again for listening.